The topic that we had chosen this year for the study on adaptable HR, and Shashwat gave us the new construct about business outcomes, commitment to adoption, and data as a GPS to again complete the loop on going back to business outcomes. We'd love to understand a little bit your journey as adaptable HR. In that context, how will you define adaptable HR, and what does that mean from Maybank perspective?
So I think the first thing is I am happy to share not just the Maybank perspective, but because I chair the Commercial Banks Association, the country level, as well as a council member of the Malaysian Employee Federation. And Global HR 50, right? As you know, which is based in New York. So
yes.
I think, well, firstly, I'd like to commend People Matters and the like for this theme. It's almost as if you had foresight of the pandemic hitting us in 2020, isn't it? So absolutely. Well, adaptability for me, right? And I like to focus on the point that adaptability, what does it mean in today's context, right?
Yeah.
Now that is even more important. So those two together, for me, is about crisis. As you pointed out, Shashwat, right? Most of the things that we talk about now, most of the things covered in the report, in the survey, are things we already knew. But the fact is we couldn't achieve, right, many of what we wanted to transform. Many of the things that we wanted to achieve over last 5 years? But we achieved it in the last 10 weeks, some aspects of it, right? So for me, it's adaptability. It's about knowing how to deal with crisis. And as you've highlighted, we're thankful as a professional, right, for the function. I think we're thankful for this because it's also a silver lining for true HR professionals to come to the forefront, right? Because you are in demand. Look at when you're not there to advise the CEO. Look at for the lack of a better example, take United Kingdom. Look at, the Prime Minister, Boris, right? Probably he didn't have enough advice. And so they started late, right? So understanding the adaptability in today's context is about being crisis ready. And that does not mean we're all over the place, because that requires being crisis ready, as you and I know, people who do business continuity management and planning. We know that it is actually a methodical, right, approach. It's a methodical mindset rather, right? Because again, I don't want us to go back to pre-COVID, right? We now understand that many things can be done that we didn't think we could achieve in 5 years can be done in 10 weeks. So I'm going to hone on that over and over like a broken record, right? But that is so important. So when I say methodical, it means a mindset, right? And it requires a lot of discipline. Yeah. So it's on the contrary to being reactive, and so forth. So what does that mean, therefore, for me? And again, the lesson learned, it's not going to go away, right? Shashwat, when you say, it's a social issue, it is a business issue as well, as far as I'm concerned, right? So in any crisis, in any business crisis, whether it's business or global, environmental, whatnot, right? The method, the mindset, right? It has to be, number one, preservation of life, right? And that is a business language as well. Because look at the horrific reputational damage, right, for any entity or any person who did not have preservation of life as the first box to check, right? So preservation of life as the method, right? As the methodical thinking, right? And then, of course, well-being, right? And well-being covers financial wellness as well. And the financial wellness of companies, because we are profit, we're serving shareholders of profit entities. So it's financial well-being of companies as well as, of course, the staff, right? So that to me is what adaptability means in today's environment. And when it comes to HR and business, it all comes together. Now, the other things like what tools and what approach, where I'm not a very trendy person. I consider myself an evergreen person. So whether you want to use the old ways of PDCA, right? Plan, do, check, act, or you want to use the sprint, right? And we use both, right? It doesn't matter, okay? But you need to understand that it's about crisis. It's about how to bounce back. It's about how to methodically look at what I said just now: life, preservation of life, preservation of well-being, which includes financial wellness. And I'd like to, share that I always use this analogy or this saying, right, which also is used as an analogy. You can control the wind. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails, right? Now, this again underscores what adaptability means in today's context. So if we break that down, right? Firstly, you need to be very, very aware. And so, as Shaswan, as you mentioned, it's not about HR transformation. It's about the business transformation, right? And so if you've got your head buried in the ground, you wouldn't even know when the wind is changing, right?
Yeah.
So you can't control the wind, but you better know how to make sure that you understand what's happening out there, right? So that's no longer a choice. That's the new normal. Knowing the business, understanding what are the, how is the business being threatened? And again, Shamswan, as you mentioned, right? Traditional players, incumbents, but also new players. Grocery, stores are banks, are providing banking services, for example, right? So if you don't have that knowledge and you don't know what's happening and you're not current, then you've got your head buried in the ground, right? And so, you can talk about transforming HR till the cows come home, and it's not going to matter, right? So that's first. Second, in that analogy, you must know your tools, right? Because in order for you to decide what do you do, because you can't control the wind and it's hitting you, right? You need to know the sail is a tool, right? And so as HR people in today's times, right, it's about all the tools at your disposal, and we've got plenty. Digital tools, right, is no longer, it's not a luxury, right? It's a requirement, and it's cheap. So we people still I find people still talking about, oh, but we don't have the millions to spend. Yes, but there are free apps that you can get the experience using, right? For example, Maybank, we've used Trello for 3 years now, right? But because of work from home, now everybody's scrambling looking for such apps and such tools. So thankfully, we've got some experience there, right? Using Trello, for example. So know your tools. And third, now you of course have to have skills, right? You want to change, adjust the sales, the sale, you need to have the skill. So that's a given again, right? And that's what we bring to the table. I'm sitting in the boardroom with my colleagues, right? What do I bring to the table? It has to be my HR skills, right? So that's a given. And fourth, again, what you mentioned, Shaswan, you're adjusting the sails because you're threatened by the wind, because it's threatening you from achieving your outcome, right? So you have to know your outcome. You have to know where you're going, right? So those to me is how I look at what is HR adaptability in the current times. I have to cover those dimensions, because those really are what matters. Yeah.
I think we can go on listening to you, Nora, with your beautiful way to put it as a story and as a storytell. I think we are all glued listening to you as you talk to us about being future ready. And I really love your metaphor. And Shashwat, step in whenever, if you wish to.
So a couple of points. So Datuk Nora, when I had joined Hewitt long back, we were still a partners firm. So we used to call this owner's mindset. So you need to, because what people today call growth mindset, and that's what you explain, is really owner mindset. So if you have the owner mindset, you will understand the problem and you will not throw a stone, you will try to solve it. Today, as organization, to your point, you provide digital tools, but you need to have your differentiated skill. And that's the point you were making. When you sit on your executive committee, you are not an HR leader, you are a business leader who comes there with deep HR skills to solve others' problems. So great points there. And we are observing it in practice. What used to take us months to harmonize, because HR was always saying, oh, this policy has been like this forever, it cannot be changed. Suddenly people are willing to change it. So to your point, I think the boundaries have expanded. So people are willing to look at way more things to change. So very true, and many interesting points here.
So as we look forward, and I would love to have your opinion, Nora, on as business resume and we go back to the new reality or the next reality, how do you see some of those analogies that you spoke about coming to play when it comes to what will it mean in defining the way we work, in defining the way leaders operate, the way that organizations are structured? How do you see that coming into play in that new reality?
Just about an hour before we came into this call, I had my weekly group exco meeting. So, HR continues to have to take the lead. Why? Because one of the things that all the organizations are dealing with, coming out from a full, down or a full circuit breaker situation, is how do we operate now? For example, aeroplanes, right? You can't fly the 200 people unless you can enlarge the plane, and you can't do that, right? So likewise, our premises, we've got 43,000 people, 23,000 in Malaysia. Our headquarters, pre-COVID, is 5,000 people, just the headquarters, right? I can't have 5,000 people come back, right? So the business is looking at us for what do we do, right? Now look at Amazon. I'm sure you caught up with the headline for Amazon that came out just recently, right? Very, very digital savvy HR. But then a basic thing like medical leave, how to handle them, people who couldn't come back because they had COVID, right? You can't fire them, right? So, those are basic things that comes to the fore in these current times. So now we were talking about what do we do now, how do we not get half of that population back into the building? What do we do with them? Are they going to be, permanently on work from home arrangements? How do we change the policy? What do they need now? Surprisingly, people with children, and we've got quite a sizable population, they are all wanting to come back to the office. Okay, right. So contrary to pre-COVID, when we were trying to target people to go on flex, and as you know, in Maybank, we started flex arrangements for a few years now, right? The target was parents with children. And one of the earliest discoveries in the pandemic, in the lockdown, is they are the ones who don't want to stay at home because they just can't, separate themselves from their children. I mean, they're young children, right? Uh, so we're working through all of that. And at the same time, we have to preserve our profits, right? We have to preserve our PBT, our key financial indicators. So, as you say, this is the time now. The stage is yours, but whether you need to take the stage, right? And lead the way, because it isn't as easy as some may think, right? And also, unless you started, and Maybank did not start as a digital startup. One of the basic things we are facing is not everybody has the tools to be working at home, right? So we've got, like I said, 43,000 people. Not all of them have laptops. When they're in the office, they're using desktops, right? And then there's, of course, the accessibility issues, the banking systems that you cannot access from home. So there are plenty of enablers and interdependencies that we need to deal with. Right? So that's on that point. So definitely, we still are required to be in the forefront.
So as you look forward, and you gave us the analogy about working with the business, knowing your tools, having your skills, and having clarity on that joint direction of common purpose. How are you working with your HR team to enable them, as Shashwat was saying, to be more strategic, to be more as that sailor who is adjusting the sails and really impacting the business? What are some of the initiatives that you could share with us that maybe you were already working on, and some of them that you're accelerating because you feel that is the need of the hour?
Yeah, a few things. Yeah. So firstly, we embarked on trying and trialing, if you like, in terms of how do we operate as much as possible within. Remember a few years ago, this was many years ago, from a holacracy and taking away ourselves from the traditional org structure. So we started that, right? And so that's why I say we use Trello, right? Because we are very project based and very outcome based. So this has accelerated the need for us to get ahead. And the team now, thankfully, understands why I've been putting them through so much pain in the last few years, right? At the same time, our performance management transformation as well, which we started in 2015, actually, right? It was chugging along. It was chugging along. You can ask any organization, and I've asked people even in New York when we meet, right? Everybody chugs along because it is actually very hard moving away from the old performance management system. During the MCO, and we've been like almost 3 months in the MCO. So within the MCO period, we actually transformed, our performance management system again, accelerated it. So, the team is working on that. The other that we had to do, we had no choice, because people literally had to work from home. We couldn't give them the option. By the way, and another example, if I quickly digress, another example of when HR had to take the leading role in spite of the fact that we were not asked to, is at the early stage of the MCO, because everybody in the world was still learning, right? And banking was an essential service, right? And so we could have just operated as usual, because that's what the government allowed us to do as a bank, right? But no, I actually stepped up and I said to my colleagues, we can't do that because we're the largest bank, we've got the largest footprint, we're in every society. We will be contributing to clusters, because when people are trying to weather what's happening, they're gonna go where they can, and they're gonna go to banks, right? And we will be part of the problem. So it was hard. It was really hard because some of my colleagues were saying, why are you doing this, right? We are an essential service. So it's tough for HR, but when it's the right thing to do, you have to step up. So to cut the story short, we are now very thankful. So everybody is very thankful that we did what we did. It helped not only Maybank, but it helped the industry, because my colleagues in the other banks, what they told me was they all went to their board and said, hey, Maybank is doing this, so we should do it, right? And so we helped the industry, and we also helped the country, I think, right? in a way. So coming back to my point, right? So we also therefore had to quickly huddle and say, now how do we ensure our people remain productive?
Yeah.
Nobody has the experience of an MCO. No one that I know in the organization has had. So we rolled out very quickly, what we call the hashtag learning never stops. We continued with what we needed to do in terms of our training and our learning and employee engagement, and very quickly became one of the Zoom users, if you like, right? And my God, within 2 weeks we had 17,000 learners, and we've never had that before, right?
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, and the Kirkpatrick measures in terms of applicability, 85% of them confirmed I could use it immediately, right?
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Yeah. So then my learning team, my engagement team was excited. They finally saw the power of what we've been trying to do. Now we have no plans to go back to full physical classes. We're very happy with the reach that we've got, right? So so my team is actually very, very busy doing the right things, right?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And I like the one of the findings, I think, that you have in the report, which really, really resonates with me. The fact that you said HR in a digital world, not digital HR, right? That it's a misnomer. I totally agree with you, because that's a discovery, a learning, and very quickly what we're leveraging on. Okay, just using whatever is the new reality. I like it that Esther, you said new reality versus new normal. Okay, so it's the new reality, it's the new expectations, and the right thing to do, and that's very important. It's the right thing to do. So we are all about enhancing integrated solutions, and that's another thing that you've got in your reports. I was very happy to see it, right? Again, people have been struggling. HR, in terms of wanting to transform, had been struggling in the the model of the 3 areas that you have also in the report, right? Many years ago, right? In customer-facing HR, business HR, and then the COEs and the shared services, right? You can't operate that way. So I've got my team now going as an intact, like a sprint team, intact team, talking to customers, achieving outcomes, right? So they're no longer I'm shared services or operations, I am COE, I'm BHC director. And they've discovered that they can do it again because of working from home, right? In order to deliver a product to our customers, they just had to Zoom together, right? Now, so I'm very happy with Zoom, by the way, right? For enabling that to happen, finally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Wonderful, Nora. And we have only last 5 minutes, and I want to make sure that Shashwant, anything that you want to ask, anything in particular before I close with a final question for both of you?
No, I had great insights and input, so I was just nodding, Datuk Nora, on many of these points, because as HR transformation professional, I've been running through these challenges. So I get many clients saying that we want continuous feedback. And my frustration is it's not about continuous feedback tool. It's about your manager being ready to think of themselves as owning development and mentoring and coaching of their team. That's their role, not to give them rating and comp increases. So when that change happens, tools will succeed. So I could not agree more with some of your comments there.
Last question for both of you as we close the session and you want to leave some words of advice for maybe CHROs that are trying to prioritize, trying to figure out how to use these new contexts to a silver lining and really accelerate business impact. Anything Nora and Shashwat you'll want to share with us on terms of one thing that our audience can start, one thing they should definitely look at stopping. One stop as we close this session today.
Okay, shall I go first?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I think I want to refer to your report. Okay. So to my dear HR colleagues, you're either going to love me or hate me for saying this. But I worry when because the report says most have rated upskilling HR capabilities as the #1 priority for everybody. I have to tell you, get off it. Okay? It's not about that. I would rate driving an integrated employee experience and to achieve the business objectives, especially because businesses are at survival mode currently. They are not interested in us talking about upskilling ourselves because we might find the business, being threatened and no longer relevant tomorrow. So that should not be our #1 priority. I'm sorry I have to say this.
Thank you, Nora. Shashwat?
In fact, Datuk Nora, thanks for calling it out because it has been like that and it never changes. The reason for that, to your point, is HR capability gap. When you look at silos, they get amplified. And to your point, when you collaborate better within HR, suddenly those gaps will disappear because it's about enabling each other. So your point is really valid there. So to my point is, HR needs to be more collaborative, and we actually were hesitant between Vikrant and me because we write this report. Our experience of most successful journey has been where HR has been really arrogant in their ambition. So I use the word arrogant or bold. So ambition needs to be way more bold, and execution needs to be, to your point, humility driven, because you will fail. You will learn from it, you will adjust. Typically, you will see that we tend to kind of step away from initial ambition. I think that's a big opportunity because everything has changed. I think HR needs to be way more courageous in what they want to experience, then really envision that future and go out and get it there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Shashwat. And that took Nora, Manaf, Shashwat, Kumar. Thank you both very much for your time today. I think it couldn't be more insightful. I would have stayed with both of you for another 2 hours today, but unfortunately, both of you have to run. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.